Jovan, Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers reaction show. Just got back from the Paycom Center here in Oklahoma City, where the Lakers delivered a statement win over the Thunder, winning 126-99 to improve to 48-30. They are now a step closer to securing the number 3 seed and avoiding OKC until potentially the conference finals. But if they end up in the 4-5 and have to play OKC, possibly in round 2, the Lakers looked pretty good against the Thunder tonight. We'll be touching on all of that in today's show. But before we get started, you guys know the drill. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to today's more like the midday gang, but shout out to the late, always the late night gang. It's late night somewhere. It's past midnight somewhere. But so Lakers win 126-99. And Buha's big picture is the Lakers show why they can win the West, in my opinion. And I've been talking about it now for over a month and a half that I've had the Lakers at number 4 overall in the NBA, and I've not wavered on that, having them behind OKC, Boston, and Cleveland. And they've now beaten OKC and Boston this season and shown that the second Boston game went down to the wire. LeBron got injured in the fourth quarter. We'll never know. That's kind of a sliding doors moment, really, with the Lakers season, just because of the groove that they were in. And had LeBron not suffered that injury, maybe they don't drop some of the games that they dropped, and they're pushing Houston right now for the 2 seed. Maybe the Lakers are just in the 2 seed straight up. I think they probably would have been had LeBron not gotten injured. But they showed that they could compete with Boston. They had a close loss to OKC in November around Thanksgiving time. And then now in what is arguably at this point of the season, their biggest game of the season, just based on the seeding stakes, and just the rest of the West is right behind them right now and keeps winning. The Clippers keep winning. The Timberwolves keep winning. The Warriors keep winning. And so like they gotta win games to stay ahead of those teams. With all that, and OKC having a chance to send their own statement to the Lakers and show them like, this is why we're gonna win 60, high 66, 67, 68 games. This is why we should be the favorites in the West. But that was not how this played out. So I think today, what was about the Lakers ceiling on both sides of the ball. And of course, I think Luka, first and foremost, he just eviscerated OKC. And I know Luka had a couple rough games in a row, but as we talked about on here, like there was no reason to overreact to his performance, and it just happened to be a couple of off games by Luka's standards. But tonight showed like this is the best defense in the league. Their difference between where they're at number 1 and league average had been historic until I believe like a week or two ago. So like OKC comparatively, from a defensive rating standpoint, they're not at like best defense of all time, but compared to league average and the rest of the NBA, that gap between 1 and league average has been a historic gap. And so point being, OKC is an elite defense. They have a lot of guys who are really good to great defenders. They have some of the best perimeter defenders in the league. They have 2 monsters inside with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein. And so on paper, this is going to be a really big test for the Lakers and their offense. And their offense has actually been better recently, and it's more so been the defense. But on the offensive end, especially with Luka, they were just mismatch hunting, attacking switches. And then once OKC started to mix it up with some trapping and some blitzing, then all of a sudden we saw the 4-on-3 and 3-on-2 playmaking. So first and foremost, Luka just dominated this game, especially in the first half. and some of the playmaking and shot making was at a different level. Second thing has to be the shot making of the group overall. They tied a franchise record with 22 3-pointers, made a season high 22 3-pointers. I believe set a franchise record for the first half with 15 made 3-pointers, or might have tied it. But just a remarkable display of shot making from the Lakers in the first half. And then the third and final thing within this performance to me, and this might be the most important one, in my opinion, because Luka, I didn't have concerns with, even with the Golden State game and the New Orleans game, like that first quarter. And the offense and the shot making, it's been a bit hit or miss lately, and there's been some swings, but like that's been trending in the right direction. But the defensive end, this was the best defensive performance the Lakers have had. Just one of their best defensive performances of the season, but certainly their best defensive performance since LeBron and Rui came back. And I think that was the key, because if you look at most of the games since those two have returned, they've been, as I've talked about, bad, like subpar to bad defensively in a majority of those games, with a couple of exceptions now being the Houston game and OKC. But I think OKC and Houston are in two different tiers offensively. Shea is a much better shot creator and scorer than anyone on Houston. He is likely going to win MVP based on how things are trending, at least per the latest ESPN straw poll. So Shea's at a certain level. And I would even say you can make a case like J-Dub is at a different level in terms of just pure shot creation than even like a Jalen Green or an Alperen Şengün. So like I like OKC's offense more than Houston's offense. And I think there's more there in terms of translating to the playoffs, translating to the half court, translating to just postseason basketball. So this was a bigger test for the Lakers. And given this is the first time OKC had not lost back-to-back games all season. So this has been a group that anytime they suffer a setback, they lose a game, they bounce back well. And I thought they got off to a solid start. And then the Lakers took control of the game about midway through the first quarter, and they never let go of the rope the rest of the way. And OKC made it several runs, one run late in the first half, a couple runs in the third quarter, another run in the fourth. Didn't matter. Anytime they made a run, the Lakers responded. But I think the key here was the defensive end and the Lakers being locked into their game plan, rotating, scrambling. They went small a lot, and that just seems to be the way that they're going to go. Jackson only played 13 minutes tonight, but it didn't matter. I thought DFS especially looked like DFS. It just was, I mean, dude's just a winner. He's the ultimate role player, glue guy around a group of stars. I thought he was big tonight. Jared Vanderbilt was big defensively and switching on to Shea and J-Dub. I thought Rui had some good defensive moments. LeBron had some really good defensive moments, quarterback in the defense. So the centerless groups brought it. And I thought even Luka, like they tried to target Luka a little bit with Shea or J-Dub, and he held his own and funneled those guys to certain spots on the floor. Same thing with Austin. So I think there were elements of, I know Crane just was tracking this on X, that from an offensive organization perspective, OKC was not quite up to their normal standards. And I assume that will be an adjustment they make for Tuesday's matchup. But I thought the Lakers looked like the Lakers pre-injury. And that was something that we had not quite seen. Because again, even the Houston game, that game was a rock fight in that first quarter. There was a lot of just like neither team could make shots. And I don't think this was that. I think this was more so the Lakers defense dictating the terms of engagement and their offense really dictating the terms of engagement against OKC's defense. So for me, this was best win of the Luka era, best road win of the season. I think this surpasses the Denver game because OKC is just at a different level than Denver right now. I think it's arguably the win of the season. I really don't know what win I would take over this just based on how great OKC has been this season. They've been a historic regular season team. And I think the Lakers went in there and put a lot of doubts in OKC's head. If these two teams match up, we'll see how Tuesday's matchup goes. And these things can be fleeting. Lakers are not going to make 22 threes every time they play OKC, but I thought they generated a lot of good looks, and defensively, again, they were able to do a lot of good things. Notable performers from tonight's game. As I mentioned, got to start with Luka, 30 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 11 of 20 shooting, 5 of 11 on threes. Pirouetting jumpers, step back contested threes, forays to the rim where he's double clutching and hanging in the air. He was getting by guys. He looked, I thought, quicker tonight for whatever reason offensively. He had the incredible, like, this tops. I've often referenced the Austin pass that he had against Utah, where he flung it behind his back 20 feet away and wasn't looking. I think this Gabe pass to the quarter, where he's coming downhill and DFS is setting a pin-in flare screen for Gabe in the right corner, and Luka tosses a no-look over the head pass to Gabe, like just pure magic, pure basketball magic. And just not even that, but he had one play in the fourth where he like just flung this baseball pass from the right wing all the way to the left corner, and it like zipped by probably like 7 players, and just some of the reads he can make are really incredible. So Luka like was the best player on the floor tonight, and I think for anyone doubting the Luka trade, anyone doubting Luka's ability to play against, like, this is as tough of a defense as the Lakers are maybe going to face in a potential playoff run outside of Boston, maybe, just specifically for the Lakers personnel. And Luka just shredded them. He eviscerated them. He ripped their hearts out. He was talking trash to the crowd. He was talking trash to the Thunder and their bench. And like, it was just a quintessential Luka performance. But he was amazing today and was the best player on the floor. Clearly, no doubt about it. Austin, 20 points, continued his cooking. He had his fair share of pick and roll drives and cooking their big men and even cooking their guards. And that's going to be something that I talk about with one of my takeaways. LeBron took over in the fourth, and that was during a portion where OKC was starting to cut the deficit a little bit. The Lakers had it. I think it got to 29 in the first half. OKC gets it to 22 right at halftime. Then in second quarter, there's a little bit of, third quarter, there's a little bit of a seesaw. But the Lakers are holding firm in like the low to mid 20s. And then early fourth quarter, I believe they get it to like 18 or 19, somewhere in that range. And LeBron just takes over with turnaround jumpers, and he gets that steal and gets the big dunk in transition. So LeBron, I thought, picked his spots offensively, as he's done a bit more recently, but then really put his foot down in the fourth quarter. And again, I thought he was really good defensively tonight. Jackson, I want to give Jackson a shout out because he only played 13 minutes, and I clearly seems to be in not like the doghouse, but I feel like that there's been a shorter leash with how they've used Jackson and just especially against bigs. It's been interesting. It's counterintuitive, but they have tended to use Jackson less against big teams and use him more against smaller teams. And I think the thinking there is like smaller teams, he could leverage his athleticism more around the rim with lobs and putbacks. Bigger teams, they like to space those teams out, make them play on the perimeter. That's what they did to OKC tonight. But Jackson, I thought, especially early, really set a tone with his screening and just the setting a bunch of high screens for Luka, getting Hartenstein switched out onto Luka. But he was also part of different pin down and weak side screening actions for LeBron or Austin or Luka. So I thought Jackson's screening tonight and just his discipline, like, there were a couple mistakes, but I thought for the most part, he was really solid. Rui, 11 points, 7 rebounds. I think he continues to be a fundamental part of the Lakers' small ball success, and he was solid tonight. Jumper wasn't quite there as it had been a little bit more recently, but ultimately, like, he was solid. DFS, I think DFS was arguably, not even arguably, like I would say their fourth best player tonight at 14 points, 7 rebounds, really helped on the glass. And he's just been such an instrumental part of their centerless lineups and the success there. A couple of assists, hit 4 threes, just a really high level game from DFS. And he plus minus beast. The Lakers were plus 28 in his 30 minutes. He was the only other Laker to crack plus 20 was Gabe. Lakers were plus 21 in his 26 minutes. Also a big nod to Gabe. He hit some big shots, 12 points, 4 threes. And as DFS said after the game, when Gabe and I are making shots, we're basically unbeatable. And I agree with that. Like, they are the cheat code of, because those are guys that teams shouldn't help off of, but they will sometimes help off of and live with those guys making shots. When they make shots, there's just not much you could do about it, because we, like Luka, Austin, LeBron, they're going to do their thing. They're going to get their points. They're going to get their assists. They're going to have a certain workload and production offensively. But when you got DFS and Gabe and Rui chipping in, it just makes the Lakers that much harder to defend. Then I thought Vando came in, had an impactful just 3 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, but had a couple steals. I thought was effective within the switching and being a defensive playmaker. I think offensively, there still seems to be some concerns there. And JJ said pregame that, and I thought this was interesting because he hasn't, when he talks about players' roles and minutes, he doesn't always go or share it this transparently as he did with Vando. But he just straight up said, like, after the Luka trade, he thinks there are some limitations to how Vando fits in the offense. And because of that, that has limited Vando's role to some extent, with just how much they're playing him. And I think it was, I think you don't have to agree with the decision, but I at least respect the transparency of, he feels like their offensive identity has shifted with Luka and they haven't quite figured out the right role or the right way to use Vando. And certainly I think they could try to kind of nail that a little bit more. And it seems like that they have tended to prefer to use him without Luka and in those LeBron AR led bench lineups. But he was just straight up about it. Just our offensive identity has shifted, and I think that's kind of put a cap on Vando's role. So we got a little bit more clarity with that. Dalton came in and played, I think, 2.5 minutes, got a little bit of a shift early in the second quarter that didn't play again until garbage time. Then garbage time was Koloko and Bronny. Jordan Goodwin, I want to give him a nod as well. 4 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. I thought he was key once they started blitzing Luka. And I've talked about this a lot. A lot of times it will be Jordan Goodwin as the guy in the middle of the floor, as the safety valve, or as that short roll playmaker, because the opponents will put their weaker defenders on him. So the Lakers want to target that defender. So they'll have Jordan Goodwin come screen for Luka. That guy was blitzing and trapping Luka at various points. And then that's when they hit Goodwin for those short roll opportunities. So he had one play late in the second quarter where he banked it in. He had another one where he hit Rui for a lob. So I think Jordan Goodwin in a certain role, and seems to clearly be, again, like the ninth man, but that's those minutes are going down. That I thought he was solid tonight. And then stat of the night, I'm going to shout out 2 stats. So one I already touched on. 22 made threes for the Lakers. This was their best shot making game of the season. Again, season high, 22 threes, tied a franchise record for 22 threes, tied a franchise record for 15 in the first half. But then the second thing, and I think this was a huge thing with the Lakers game plan tonight, 0 free throw attempts for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And I think, I will say, in fairness to Shai, I think some of the free throw merchant stuff has gone a little bit overboard. I don't think he's as egregious as like prime James Harden, Trae Young, Jalen Brunson. I think there's some guys who are at a different level in terms of the grifting and trying to get fouls. I think Shai gets a little bit of a bad rap with that. However, the Lakers did a great job of staying in front of him. I think there was several times there were just breakdowns and they chose not to foul. And you got to have the right balance of that trade-off where you don't want to just make it too easy. And like sometimes you need to take a foul. And I think I would be like stunned if he gets 0 free throw attempts again on Tuesday. I think there will be some free throw attempts. I'm sure the Thunder will let the refs know about 0 free throw attempts for him. But I thought this was a key pivot point for the Lakers defensively. What was holding Shea? I believe it was the first time since 2021 he had not had attempted a free throw. It was something like 1,200 something days. It's been a while. So really impressive defense from the Lakers in terms of being able to defend him without fouling. He had 26 points on 23 shots. So you will take that 7 days of the week. He did shoot over 50%, but he had to take so many shots to get there and had a bit of a slow start, and then eventually made up for it with some stellar shot making in the second half. But I think you live with Shea scoring 26 points on 23 shots and not attempting a free throw. Then takeaway number one for me is playoff Luka. And we've seen, I think this was Luka's best game as a Laker. I think there are other games where the stats were crazier, but I think, again, based on the caliber of opponent, based on their defensive, they basically don't play a bad defender. Like Chet Holmgren is a good defender. Jalen Williams is a good defender. Isaiah Hartenstein, good defender. Shea's a good defender. Dort's a good defender. Kenrich Williams is a solid bench defender. Alex Caruso, all defense type defender. Isaiah Joe is one guy that is a little bit smaller, and the Lakers were able to target him a bit. Aaron Wiggins is solid, and then Wallace is really good defensively. So like, you could argue 7 of their top 8 or 9 guys are good to great defenders, and that's rare in a rotation. I'm not the first person to make this comparison, but some have compared them to the 2020 Lakers, with just having so much defensive firepower, where you're just rotating in good defender for another good defender and another good defender, another good defender, and they do have a certain level of size, especially in the front court. And like, this is a really good defensive team, and it did not matter against Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic eviscerated them. He annihilated them. He ripped their hearts out, and he did it with a smile on his face. He did it with joy in his face, in his eyes. He's diabolical for the Lakers the best way possible. And it just, JJ talked about this in the beginning when they got Luka. You cannot switch against Luka. You cannot drop against Luka, because it is death. And that most teams will switch against him. And he also talked about it on Mind the Game last year with LeBron. They were talking about the different ways to defend Luka and coverages, but also early in Luka being a Laker, he talked about this of like, teams basically have to switch or they have to trap. It didn't matter what OKC did tonight. They switched with Hartenstein and weaker defenders. Luka cooked those guys. They blitzed and trapped. There were times Luka dribbled away from it. There were times he hit the short roll guy or reversed it, and then the Lakers got into another action or attacked an advantage. And there's times they dropped with Chet. They actually were interestingly dropping more with Chet than they were with Hartenstein. And by nature, OKC is a little bit more of a drop team with their bigs, but with tonight's matchup, Hartenstein was switching, and then Chet was in drop, and then he eventually started switching more, and LeBron cooked him a few times in the fourth. But they started, like, it didn't matter whether Chet was in drop, whether Chet was switching, Luka was cooking that too. So I think tonight we got a taste of what playoff Luka looks like. He can cook the best defense in the league, and a lot of it did come with Dort off of him. And I wonder if OKC is going to make an adjustment where they fight harder. Like, they were conceding the switches, I thought, a little bit too easily. And you could tell there's a bit of a game plan shift there with that. I wonder if they're going to try and keep Dort on Luka more on Tuesday. But even then, it didn't matter who was guarding him tonight. He was hitting step backs. He was getting into the lane. He had his floater. He got to the rim. He had his post-up turnarounds. He was in his bag. He was in his element. He was making everything. And this is what playoff Luka is. Like, this dude has been a playoff riser. This dude has been easily a top 5 playoff performer over the past half decade. And that's the player that the Lakers are about to have for the foreseeable future, for the next however many years. But for this postseason, like, this is what you're going to see. This is what Luka does, and he could do it at an even higher level. He could put up even bigger numbers. And I just thought what he did today, what was special against again a defense that has done. They've beaten everybody. They've had a lot of big wins. They've had big wins against the Celtics. They've looked really good against basically every team in the NBA. And it's one game, and I do want to obviously have that appropriate context and caveat. But Luka, I feel like there's been a lot of talk about Lou Dort guarding Luka and how OKC guarded him last year. And I went back and looked at the numbers, and Luka's numbers were pretty good in that series, in the conference semifinals. I know he had a couple of games that maybe were not up to his standard, but Luka's numbers in totality were pretty good, both from an overall production standpoint and from a shooting perspective. I want to say he shot 39% on threes, if I remember correctly, in that series. So I think this is a really, in addition to, I think LeBron left a lot on the table in terms of they weren't even involving him as much as usual. And I think there's more they can do with getting him on the block, posting up, bully ball, kind of similar to Golden State. I just don't think they have they do have much better rim protection and size around the basket than Golden State, but I don't think J-Dub or Caruso is big enough, or Kenrich Williams is big enough to guard LeBron. So I still think there's other elements of the Lakers offense they didn't even get into in this game that they can counter with on Tuesday against OKC. But tonight was the Luka show, and he put on quite the show. And it was a reminder of, sure, did he have a horrible first quarter against New Orleans? And did he have an out-of-body experience against Golden State on both sides of the ball? Yes. But against OKC in a really important game that the Lakers really needed, this is really helping them get to potentially the number 3 seed. He delivered in a significant way, and he did so again, ripping the hearts out of OKC and its fans, and just delighting in every moment of that. This guy is a diabolical villain, again, in the best way for the Lakers, but he just loves being in road environments and silencing the crowd and hitting big shots and making big plays, and just torturing them. He had them in the torture chamber tonight. It didn't matter how they defended him. He was torturing them all night, and just a incredible performance from Luka. Takeaway number 2, I touched on this, but the defense is back, and I just think that the Lakers all of a sudden were remaining in their shell defense. They were rotating. The communication was there. There was an urgency. I thought they beat OKC to a lot of 50-50 balls. I didn't touch on the rebounding, but they out-rebounded OKC by 9, and they only gave up 9 offensive rebounds, and 5 of those were in non-garbage time. So they gave up 4 from Dylan Jones off the bench from OKC. Won the game, it was over. So really, in the first 3.5 quarters, they only gave up 5 offensive rebounds, and they gave up a couple early. There was the one where they got the rebound, and then it caromed out of I forgot who got the board, but it caromed out of someone's hands and then went to Hartenstein. He might have gotten a steal for that. I don't remember if that was technically a steal or an offensive rebound. It was kind of a freak play, but stuff like that, whether that was, again, a turnover, an offensive rebound, there were a couple times where there were some breakdowns, but for the most part, the Lakers did a really good job on the defensive glass. And going up against a double big look, you would think OKC would be able to punish them. And looking at it, Chet did not have an offensive rebound. Hartenstein had 2, and J-Dub had 1. And that was it among the starters. Shea didn't have 1. Dort didn't have 1. Caruso had 1. Aaron Wiggins had 1. So again, 5 offensive rebounds in the competitive portion of this game. And that's supposed to be, on paper, an advantage for the Thunder, is starting the 2 bigs. Even if Chet is obviously Gumby out there, and he's got the wiry frame. Like, he's bigger than Jackson, and he's a better rebounder than Jackson. So like, if it was just Chet versus Jackson, I could kind of understand that. But then you have Hartenstein, who's a beast, 7 foot, 250, 260 pounds, whatever he is, and it didn't matter. So I thought the Lakers again showed a defensive potential that I wasn't quite sure if it was still there or when they were going to show it again, because they had not shown it in weeks. Like, I think this is easily their best defensive performance in well over a month. And again, might be their best defensive performance of the season. They held this team to 99 points. Like, that is OKC at 56 at halftime. So just by that, they were on pace to score 112 points, and they ended up with 99. So the defense, again, I thought OKC, like, Shea got some good stuff in the mid-range, but you live with that. Shea's a great shot maker, so he's going to make some of those, but they weren't fouling on them. And I thought, again, there was some breakdowns, but they were pretty good and did not allow. There wasn't much targeting, and I thought there was proper help if there was targeting. And I just felt the rotations in the back line and a big, I think LeBron, Rui, DFS, Vando, those guys really did an impressive job, as they've done when the Lakers defense has looked their best in recent weeks. Like, those guys were the key to it. So I also think I think Gabe's defense, like, just on both sides of the ball, he's a 3-and-D guard, and he has been really important for this team as they've made this push. So just, yeah, the defense, I had been pretty discouraged, and I've been talking about it on here about the defense recently, and just about the conceding switches to certain teams and the inability to contain the ball and the inability to rebound and protect the rim. And like, there's just a lot. 3-point defense tonight, OKC just 12 of 37. Dort took 7 threes. That was by design. So I thought there was a lot to like about the defensive end. And again, I think that's arguably the most important thing from this game, just because for the Lakers to get to where they want to get to, they're going to need to defend at or around this level. And it was nice to see that they could still conjure up that fastball when necessary. And then takeaway number 3, final takeaway before we get into the Q&A, is looking at the standings right now. The Lakers, like, this was a huge win for the Lakers' hopes of being the number 3 seed and even potentially the number 2 seed, depending on what happens with Houston the rest of the way. So right now, as we are talking, Houston and Golden State have not started their game yet. They're starting in about 10 minutes. So that will be something to monitor. Big game. If Golden State wins, they are still in the hunt behind the Lakers. But then Houston is a little bit more vulnerable. If Houston wins, then they're harder to catch. But then Golden State, there's a little bit more breathing room there for the Lakers. So with the win tonight, the odds of being in the top 4 increase, the odds of keeping the 3 seed increase. And I think tentatively, you don't want to speak too soon, the bracket is breaking nicely for the Lakers, where they can be on the Houston side of the bracket, which I think is much more advantageous than being on the OKC or Golden State Denver side of the bracket. Though the Denver side is, I mean, if Jamal Murray, there's been some weird stuff with Jamal Murray, and like if he's going to come back for the playoffs or whatnot. So that's something to monitor. But I think in that case, I would certainly favor Golden State. I probably would favor Golden State over Denver anyway, but like avoiding Golden State and OKC, I think would be a good thing, and let those teams fight it out and then beat each other up and play them in the conference finals. But for the Lakers to be on the side of Houston, and also we'll see who comes out of Minnesota, Clippers, Memphis. I think it's probably going to be Minnesota, just because they have the easiest remaining schedule and they've won 5 in a row. They've been the hottest team in the West, right there with Golden State. It's probably going to be Minnesota, but I think between all the options, Lakers being 3, having Minnesota, and then playing Houston, they're going to be tested with the perimeter athleticism and defense. But I think that's more advantageous than being in the 4-5, playing Golden State, and then playing OKC in round 2. Like there's no easy paths in the West, but I think that the projected path that the Lakers are on right now makes it much more likely, in my opinion, that I would pick them to make the conference finals and potentially make the conference finals with like 3 losses or maybe 4. But I think they're in a pretty good spot right now. If they take care of business the rest of the way, and if things stay close to as is, I think the Lakers will like the side of the playoff bracket that they're on. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A. Let's see, we got a lot. First one from Rolla. Jovan, why was everyone yelling at Rui? I don't know. That was I found it kind of funny. Maybe I didn't pick up on all of the berating of Rui. I did pick up on, like, there was the one play where LeBron fumbled the ball out of bounds on the defensive rebound, and then he immediately turns to Rui, beelines over to him, and starts yelling at him. And I don't know if I haven't had a chance to rewatch the game, so I don't know if that was some type of prior breakdown that led to that situation or what it was. I will say LeBron, since over the last few years with this group, with this core group, the 3 guys he's been hardest on are Austin, Max, and Rui. And I think a commonality with all those 3 is those are all young guys that LeBron really believes in. And we know Rui and LeBron have worked out before, and they have a good mentor-mentee relationship. So I don't think it's anything serious or anything to read into too much. But I do know LeBron can be hard on him and can be on his case when he's making defensive mistakes, or remember the swing MFer early in the season against Sacramento when LeBron was on fire. So I think he can get on Rui's case a bit, but I think it comes from a good place of brotherly love and just kind of being his mentor on the team. So I wouldn't read too much into it. D-Lo, strongest soldier, thank you for the super chat. OKC, UFC, KFC, Lakers in 5. Rui on Shea was perfect. Yeah, I think Rui did a good job switching on to him. I also think they tried several things. Austin got the initial start on him, and Rui was on J-Dub, but they also switched Rui onto him. Vando got some time on him. DFS got some time on him. Gabe got some time on him. So that's the beauty. Like, when the Lakers defense is looking right, that is what it looks like. But to your point, like, I thought Rui had a good defensive game. I thought there was a couple of mistakes, and I guess so too did LeBron and did some of his teammates. But for the most part, I thought Rui was solid. Like, didn't shoot the ball as well as he normally has, but those things happen. And Lakers had a pretty good shooting night, so you're not going to really hold that one against him. But OKC, UFC, KFC, Lakers in 5. I mean, I don't think I would pick them in 5 over OKC. I'd probably pick them in 6, but you're not far off. Rama's Aviation, thank you for the super chat. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lou Dort effect. Yeah, I mean, they were able to switch him off Luka and also play off of him and force him to be a shooter. And I will say with OKC again, like, I think they left some stuff, some low-hanging fruit, and they could do some more creative stuff. Like, I wonder if this ends up being a good thing for them longer term, not necessarily in like a Lakers matchup, but like, they got punched in the mouth hard today. They got embarrassed on their home court. They have one more home game, and that's against the Lakers on Tuesday. So you would think, like, final regular season home game, there's going to be like a point of pride there. They had not lost 2 games in a row. Now they're potentially about to lose 3 in a row. Like, so I think Lakers are going to get OKC's best shot on Tuesday, and we still don't know how the Lakers are going to approach that game. LeBron said he has not decided yet, like, and it's far too early to tell whether he's going to play on both ends of the back-to-back Tuesday and Wednesday. And then JJ said post-game they're taking it day to day, that they have not made any decisions yet about the upcoming back-to-back. So for all we know, they could rest those guys against OKC and try to go for the Dallas game. I don't really see them resting against Dallas because it's Luka's return. It's such a big game for him that I think they're going to try and win that game for Luka. But I also don't think you want to just punt a game against OKC. So if I'm the Lakers, I I ride it out, and like it sucks. You got to play back to back, but seeding is on the line. I think I still think that being the 3 seed versus being the 4 or 5 seed, that there is a big difference in my opinion, and my confidence in terms of the Lakers' path just shifts. Like I don't want to overreact to the OKC win and just straight up say the Lakers are gonna beat them. It's a guarantee. It's a sweep. It's a 5-game series. Like, no, OKC is better than this. They will be better than this on Tuesday. The Lakers kick their ass again on Tuesday. I will change my tune and I will change my priors. But for now, I think it was like peak Lakers and not peak Thunder. I would like to see what peak Thunder looks like. But regardless, like to your point, yes, Lu Dort had a rough showing tonight, let's say. Easy peasy. Thank you for the super chat. Just as I thought the Luka trade was the strangest thing to happen in the NBA, Shea doesn't get a free throw. It was odd. I didn't even notice that. You know, it did feel like Shea was just taking a lot of, it was just a lot of his shoulder bump, mid-range jumpers and turnarounds and or coming off screens and firing, and did get to the rim a few times. Like, I don't know, maybe there could 1 or 2 times he maybe could have gotten fouled that they just didn't call it, and they were letting them. I mean, Lakers only took 17 free throws, Thunder took 12, so 29 combined free throws. Lakers just had 28 against the Pelicans, by themselves. So this was a bit of a more playoff-like game in terms of how they were reffing it. Some weird calls. Remember, LeBron is on a 1-on-3, and he gets clobbered, and somehow it's an offensive foul. Then Lakers have to challenge that. Then Luka's guarding Shea, and they originally, I mean, that was the time Shea got fouled. Like they were calling it a foul. He was about to go to the free throw line. Then the Lakers challenged that one, and then they deemed Luka didn't touch him, and that Shea kicking him was marginal, and so it was just a no call. So it was oddly ref game at sometimes, but yeah, I mean, it is, to your point, it is odd to see Shea not attempt a free throw. Tai, thank you for the super chat. OKC defense lacks muscle and size. So this, I think I've kind of touched on this, but I do want to make this clear point. Like, I think the Lakers have a important size advantage on the perimeter in this matchup. And this is why when I've talked about the Lakers OKC matchup before, the point of confidence for me has been, I don't think they match up well with LeBron and Luka. And we saw it tonight. We didn't see as much one-on-one Luka Dort, but we saw Hartenstein and Chet switch onto Luka. We saw him cook those guys. We saw him target an Isaiah Joe or a Kason Wallace, Kenrich Williams. Those guys are either too slow or too small or both to hang with him and not strong enough. So it's like, outside of Dort and maybe J-Dub, I feel like those are like the only 2 guys that have like any shot at hanging with Luka. And even then, I think the thing with Luka is like he can generate that step back against anybody. And when he's making it, it is literally unguardable. It is literally unstoppable. Now, does he make it all the time? Does he make it at a 45% rate? Like, no, but he makes it enough where like he makes it more than, not more than he doesn't, but like he makes it at a good enough rate where you have to respect it. You can't just concede it. And I think that really it just puts defenses in a bind. And again, I called it the torture chamber on X, and I called it the torture chamber again today. Like, they were in the torture chamber. It did not matter what they did. Luka always had the right answer, the right read. But that's Luka. With LeBron, they were a little bit of J-Dub. They were switching Chet onto him. I think they were a little bit more okay with that switch than switching Chet onto Luka. LeBron, again, more quiet of like a first 3 quarters before. I think he had 8 or 10 in the fourth, something like that. But I think there's a lot left on that side of the ledger in terms of getting LeBron down. Like there was not a lot of downhill attacking with the two big looks. There was not a lot of post ups, at least first half, like as many as they could. They really want to hammer the bully ball. So I'm with you. I think that's where they have speed and athleticism advantages against the Lakers with some of those guys on the perimeter. But the Lakers have size and strength. And I don't think OKC makes you pay in the same way that like Golden State does. And that's why I think, as crazy as it kind of sounds, just based on how dominant OKC has been, like I think Golden State's offense is harder for the Lakers to match up with, especially when they go small, than OKC's is. And that's just because of the constant moving and screening. And they put you in a lot of predicaments of, it's a lot of read and react motion based stuff that it can be hard to game plan for, and can be like some of it's improv. And I think with OKC, and that's the offensive end, like, but on the defensive end, I think they're too small. And like Keyshawn Wallace and Isaiah Joe, those guys are gonna be food against Austin and Luka and LeBron. Even J-Dub, for as I was talking to someone pregame at the game, and they were making the case for J-Dub for an all defense team. And I think he's a really good defender. There's not much he can do against Luka and LeBron. So it's like, I think they are missing that like in between size. They have a lot of, they got the two bigs, then they got a couple big wings in Shea and J-Dub and Kenrich Williams. But even then, those guys are not like LeBron or Rui, or they just don't have a lot of those in between players. And I think that hurts them in this matchup. So I'm with you. Steve Peterson, thank you for the super chat. It's nice to see Braun healthy again. It's crazy. We have to use challenges early and both be successful. SGA foul baiter, 0 free throws. Yeah, I mean, and I think Braun could still probably isn't even 100% healthy if you asked him. Like again, he had not decided yet if he's going to be playing in both Tuesday and Wednesday back to back. So I think LeBron can even, with more time, get healthier and even be at a higher level and look more like his pre-injury self. The challenges, they've had some rough ones recently. It feels like, because I feel like JJ has a pretty good success rate with his challenges. The Lakers, they have a team, so kind of behind the scenes with it, and this isn't unique to the Lakers, but they have a like live feed, and they can like even more than like if you're just like watching on League Pass or watching on TV, and they can go back quickly and replay it and look at different angles and make a quick read on whether they should challenge it or not. So they have designated assistant coaches and player development and video people all tracking this stuff in real time and making suggestions of whether they should challenge something or not. And especially if a player, and it does matter who, because you'll see like if Luka or LeBron really pushes for a challenge, and in both cases today, one was a LeBron push, one was a Luka push, you'll see like they'll quickly go look at it, and JJ will at least like send the signal of like, check this. And that's just kind of how it goes now with challenges, where obviously stars are going to have a certain level of influence in terms of like if a team considers a challenge. And in both cases they were right, and in both cases the Lakers were successful. But unfortunately they lost timeouts in both cases, and in one case OKC got the ball back, one case the Lakers got the ball back. But like it was just wasting timeouts basically on these challenges that shouldn't have had to be challenges in the first place. But they got the Shea one right, because that wouldn't have made a real big difference in the game at that point. But he was about to get his 2 first free throws, and who knows how that psychologically would have affected him at all. But if I'm OKC, I will say one thing. If I'm OKC, I think one of my tweaks is like, I do try to spam more Shea. It feels like they haven't, like, I mean, look, he's averaging 32 points a game, so it's not like they don't go to him a lot, but like, I feel like they almost could have gone to him more. And like, that was like the one part of their offense that was working relatively, especially in the second half. And I know Lakers were doing different things to get the ball out of his hands, but and I think he had 9 assists, so he did a good job distributing. But like I think they could even, it might have to be more of like a heliocentric Shea game on Tuesday against the Lakers. Like they might have to really lean into him and need a superhuman performance for OKC to have a shot or to make it more competitive, whatever. Jabugan, thank you for the super chat. The more I see, the more it feels like this team is very aware of how good it is and picks and chooses times to show up. The effort today was massive. I think there's an element of this for sure. And I would say that the one frustrating part, I understand the logic behind it. The frustrating part with that is then you have games like the Chicago game where they ramp it up, they have the game won, and then they just let go of the rope. And like, had they held on to the rope for 12, I mean, we could say 12 seconds, but realistically, like within the course of the fourth quarter, literally like 30 seconds to a minute, if they had held on to the rope in that fourth quarter just that much longer, they win that game. And I think the frustrating part has been seeing them let go of the rope, not have the requisite focus or mental awareness or energy or effort or whatever against some of these lesser teams, and them blow games that they should be winning. Because you had the Chicago game, you had the Brooklyn game, you had let's say Chicago, Charlotte, Brooklyn, Utah. Those 4 wins, they're 52 and 26. They are 1 game ahead of the Rockets in the win column, 1 game ahead of the Rockets in the loss column. And that's even with LeBron suffering the injury. So now think about that. And like, maybe you could shave off another win or add another win or 2. And like, they're still so far behind OKC because OKC's won 64 games. But like the Lakers could be comfortably in the 2 seed right now, I think, with taking care of business against some of these lesser teams. So I would say that's the only frustrating part about what you're saying with them picking and choosing, because I agree. And on the one hand, it's like a good thing because it does show when the Lakers want to ramp it up, their ceiling on both sides of the ball, very few teams can match. And like, really, I think it is only OKC, Cleveland, Boston. Like, barring an injury or like a setback with one of these guys who's banged up, those are really the only 3 teams I could see beating the Lakers in a playoff series. Maybe Golden State if everything goes right, but even then I would still favor the Lakers. So it's like it's a good thing because you see the ceiling, but you're also like, you're just a little bit more consistent, especially against these lesser teams. You'd be the 2 seed, and you'd have home court throughout the rest of the West playoffs outside of OKC, and like it just be in a better spot. So that's the one thing with that. Tai says Reeves over Halliburton, can't change my mind. Thank you for the super chat. Look, man, with the way that Austin's been playing, I get it. Like I will say that in Halliburton's defense, they are 46 and 31. They're 4th in the East. And what I will say with this, and I've actually ended up having this conversation because I don't know if you guys remember, I got asked like Halliburton, Paul George, and Bradley Beal versus Austin, like rank those 4. And I had Austin 2nd. And I had Halliburton 1st, and that caught the attention of some people, and some conversations were had. And the one thing I will say with it is Austin's a much better defender. Halliburton is a glaring target on the defensive end and a guy that can really compromise your defense. And the other thing is I think Austin's scalability and versatility makes it so like, if you want to rank on like just raw production or whatever, like you obviously, and impact stats and whatnot, like could clearly make a case for or make the case for Halliburton. But in terms of versatility and scalability and like Austin, like if you just swap these 2 guys, I mean, sure, Halliburton could have a caretaker role within the Lakers offense and like be the number 3, but for what Austin does compared to what Halliburton's skill set is, he's a better passer and playmaker. But in terms of like pure scoring and just that pick and roll bag, like, I don't know, man. It's I think especially with the leap that Austin has made, because I think he's made like 3 or 4 leaps this season. He's made a leap in the past month. Like, I mean, he just had 5 straight 30-point games entering this game. He's making that a tough conversation. So I still think if you surveyed NBA GMs, like, it would be like Halliburton would get more votes than Austin in terms of like who's the better player or who would be the guy that just add them to like a random roster. But I think Austin's versatility, like, I think he's more versatile than Halliburton, and he's not as much of a defensive liability. So, yeah, man, I think it's a conversation. Jazz Singh, thank you for the super chat. Loving AR's growth and adaptability this season as a playmaker, finisher, scorer, and defender. He continues to rewrite his ceiling. What tier is he in? I like the last part because that was a point I recently made. And if you guys follow me on, or if you look at my shorts section of the page, or you follow me on IG, X, TikTok, which I do recommend you follow me on all those places. I cut up together a clip of a recent point I was making about just Austin's growth this season and him shattering any perceived ceiling that he has. And I mean, remember, first it was like, okay, this guy's an NBA player. Okay, this guy's a rotation player. Okay, is this guy like one of the top 5 guys on the team? Okay, this guy should probably be starting. Okay, this guy has to be starting. Okay, this guy is starting. Okay, he's the 3rd best Laker. Okay, is he like, and it just keeps going up and up and up. And like, is he, okay, he's a future, like, cemented as a stalwart of a cornerstone of the organization. Okay, is he a future all-star? Okay, is he a future all-NBA guy? Like, he just keeps rewriting that ceiling, and it feels silly to keep putting him in a box or putting a roof over him, because he's gonna punch through it. But I'm with you. The growth, the adaptability. I think he's the guy whose role has fluctuated the most this season. From at first, there was kind of the 4-headed monster of LeBron, AD, Austin, and D'Lo, and them trying to figure out ball handling and playmaking, shot creation, all that stuff. Then D'Lo gets moved to the bench. Austin gets promoted a bit, and then we see sometimes when LeBron or AD misses time, then D'Lo gets traded. Then there's way more on Austin in terms of the playmaking. And remember that there was a stretch there where he was getting a lot of turnovers. He wasn't quite looking like, I mean, he was not playing to this level. And JJ talked about just him being thrown into the fire and what that would do. And I think the biggest thing, and on the one hand, it feels funny, or not funny, but like, I want to give JJ credit, because I think JJ has believed in Austin and he's seen the vision in a way that, like, I'll be straight up about like my Austin experience. Like, I mean, like many, I had no idea who Austin, I mean, obviously I knew from like summer league, but I didn't view Austin as like a guy to be on the roster. So they add him right before, remember there's the LeBron mini camp, and he earns, first he's a 2-way guy briefly, and then he gets bumped up to the official roster. And I was like, okay, like many people, I was like, who's this like generic looking white guy? And then all of a sudden, in his rookie year, I was advocating. I had, for those who remember the Forum Club back in the day with the Athletic, I was advocating on that podcast for Austin to be starting and saying that Austin was their 3rd best player at the time over Russ and just that whole situation. Then the next year, remember Lonnie Walker starting over him, which I also thought was a mistake. Then the following year, despite having the big breakout to close 2023, being on Team USA, he gets benched 9 games into the season for Cam Reddish. So point being, I think Frank Vogel empowered him later in the season, but was a little too slow. And part of it was just the politics of the roster. They had a bunch of veteran guys and Russ, and it just what was an awkward situation. Then Darvin, I thought similar thing. starting Lonnie Walker, not empowering Austin, benching him eventually. Like I thought he kind of fumbled that. And then JJ's been the guy who finally was like, okay, no, like this guy's our third best player. For moving anybody to the bench, it's D'Lo. This guy's not playing like under 35 minutes a night, and he needs to be empowered with 15 plus shots. He needs to have the ball in his hands a lot. Like this is our number 3 guy, point blank period. And I think to JJ's credit, like he made that bet. He gave Austin the reps, and Austin has taken that, ran with it, and I think actualized a lot of the potential we thought he had, and then even taken it to a higher level. In terms of what tier he's in, it's really hard to do off the top of my head. I mean, I said it the other day. I think he's firmly a top 40 player in the league. I think you can make a case for top 35, and then once you start getting into like the top 30 mix, there are a lot of names in that range, but I think he belongs in that conversation. And I think he's been playing at an all-star level for a month and a half or so. So I would really have to think about it. That's probably more of an off-season thing in terms of where he ranks, and we'll see also how he fares in the playoffs this year, but he's also typically fared well. So yeah. Dan Demand, thank you for the super chat. Yo. Just wanted to show some appreciation and respect to you, dog. Your content is a staple of my day-to-day and it's a great watch and listen every time. Much love, man. 100 emoji. Keep doing your big one. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Dan. You are the man. And I just, that means a lot. So I'm honored to be part of your day-to-day coverage and content, and hope to keep that going and should keep doing this at a greater level. So I appreciate you. Ty, thank you for the super chat. People will see the 3-point percentage and throw this game out. That was just the result of great play, open 3 and rim pressure at will. Lakers bad matchup for OKC. I agree on all fronts. And look, that's why I said I don't dismiss their offensive performance. I think there's a reason why 22 threes is the franchise record. So I think there was an incredible level of shot making tonight that I don't think you could pencil in the Lakers to make 22 threes for any other game this season necessarily. However, I will say that they have been increasing their 3-point volume, and it's not uncommon for teams to hit 20 plus threes. The NBA record's 29, and that's been a more recent as teams have taken more threes. So I don't think you could pencil them in for 22, but I wouldn't be surprised if they hit 22. Like they've been, especially recently, in that 18, 19, 20 range. Like it's kind of just been an inevitability that they were going to cross that 20, because they had not made 21 threes before. That their previous season high was 20. So they beat that with 21. Then they got another 3 late, got to 22. So I'm with you. Like, I mean, the fact of the matter is, even if they make 17 threes, which is good, but not like crazy, they still take away the 15 points. They still won this game by 27. So they win by 12, right? So that anyone who's discounting this performance by looking just at the threes and taking that away from the Lakers, like that's just pure hating. I don't know how else to assess that other than like just straight up Lakers hate or just confirmation bias against the Lakers of you didn't believe in the Lakers as a team that could make the conference finals or win the title. And so you are looking for anything to justify that. And you are saying, okay, well, they made 22 threes. They're not going to make that again. Like this was fool's gold. This was BS. Like, this was a fluke win, right? If you're saying that, then that's fine. But like, we will see where this group ends up. Obviously, barring injury, I think you're going to see more performances like this moving forward, including potentially Tuesday. Like I don't think they're going to make 22 threes on Tuesday, but they generated a bunch of good looks. And it felt like the Denver game where it didn't matter what they were doing defensively. They just were pinging the ball all over the floor and getting whatever look they wanted. And yeah, I mean, I think this is not a good matchup for OKC in the perimeter battle. I think again that I think they need to do a better job of leveraging their size, and they also need to switch things up a little bit defensively. I think they got to be careful with the Hartenstein switching. I think that they're going to have to. I'm not sure what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to mix things up, though. I think they're going to probably have to put more blitzing, more trapping, and then zoning up the middle. And you're going to have to live with some corner threes, but that's also where the Lakers could get back to the 22 threes again. So we'll see. OKC's in a tough spot. I think their best offense might end up being their defense and invite, I think those two things can feed off of each other. So being better on one end, I don't really know what they do on the defensive end. So it might just have to come from like better shot making, more Shea. But yeah, I'm fascinated to see how both teams counter on Tuesday, because JJ said there's counters coming from the Lakers side, which of course there will be. Matt Blasi, thank you for the super chat. Jovan wanted to take another opportunity to tell you how much I appreciate you and your show/content. It's incredible that not only are you willing to interact with fans, but you revel and enjoy that aspect of it. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you, Matt. I know you've been a big supporter, giving me a couple shout outs. So I'm humbled. I'm honored. I appreciate it. And yeah, man, like this has been the most fun part. Like it feels like old school radio. And I briefly had a radio show at USC, and we didn't really have callers. It was more of just a conversation. And for me, like I've always enjoyed interacting with fans and interacting with listeners and viewers and commenters and stuff. Like I think, of course, within the bounds of just being respectful and having a nice conversation. But I think that's been like the most fun part of this, honestly, is I do like sharing my takeaways and my observations, and that's why the first 25, 30 minutes are that. But then I love getting into the Q&A and talking with you guys and that back and forth. So definitely my favorite part of all of this. Rolla, thank you for the super chat. Who's Dwight's equivalent in today's NBA? We need him. I mean, there isn't really a Dwight Howard equivalent, because there's not like there's not like Jalen Duren kind of comes to mind, but he's almost more of a like an Andre Drummond type. There isn't. Yeah, I mean, I assume I was thinking prime Dwight. If you're talking about like later Dwight, there's just not a lot of brawny, no pun intended, but like brawny as in BRAWNY, like muscly bigs just sitting on benches. Really, a lot of bigs are either more athletic or like shooter types. I guess like I could see Isaiah Stewart maybe being that type of guy, that having that type of impact, but he's also going to want to fight everybody. I'd have to probably think more about it. But in terms of like that impactful defender, there are impactful bigs off the bench. Obviously, Naz Reid comes to mind. I think there are guys who like can replicate some of that, but not. There's no one who's just like a shutdown post defender, rim protector type like Dwight from 5 years ago. So at least off the top of my head, because even thinking about the defensive player of the year race, it's like Mobley, Draymond, Triple J. If you want to extend it, like a Jared Allen, a Chet, a Hart and stuff, like those guys, Zubac, like Zubats, but Zubats is a different type of player than Dwight. So like, yeah, there's no, off the top of my head, that there's no like Dwight exact. I wonder in the chat, let me know if you guys think. Art of War says Dwight's like Lively or Powell. I would say Powell's pretty close to being washed, in my opinion, but maybe the a couple years ago with Lively, I compared Lively more to Tyson Chandler. I think he's a little bit more wiry than Dwight. I don't think he's got the bulk, but that's not bad. I mean, Gafford, I guess now that you're bringing it up. Walter White says Giannis. Yeah, but that's probably right. Like AD. it's Mr. TD says Kai Jones or Jericho Sims for cheap. Well, I guess that's not necessarily in relation to Dwight, but yeah, that's a tough player archetype to find. I think that player is kind of phasing out of the league, but I think certainly the Lakers could use another big physical defender. I mean, like Trey Jemisin's kind of got the Dwight build, but he doesn't have the burst and explosion and athleticism that Dwight has, and offensively two totally different ballparks there. But like, I guess Trey Jemison is kind of similar from like the build perspective. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to find that guy. Norma Maldonado, aka my mom. Luka heard your YouTube comparing him to LeBron. LOL. Please don't ignite this this discussion in the chat again. I don't want to go through the Luka LeBron war that we had last live stream, but I said my piece on that. But I appreciate you for the super chat. Harry Chidati, thank you for the super chat. Great win, but can't get complacent. Only 2 game separation from 3rd to 8th in this crazy West bloodbath. 100%. And I don't think the Lakers are going to get complacent. And if they get complacent, then I will come back on here and we will talk through that. But I think for now, you take things one game at a time. They won this game. They won so in impressive fashion. They won so in convincing fashion. It was a really big win. I talked about at a minimum, they needed to go 1-2 on this road trip at a minimum, and ideally 2-1. 2-1 is very much in play, but at a minimum, they are going to go 1-2, and that keeps them in the hunt for, I think, the 4 seed at lowest, but still very much the 3 seed if they can go, like if they go 4-1 over the final 5, and now from this point on, they go 3-1 the rest of the season, they lock in the 3 seed. They go 4-0, they lock in the 3 seed, and depending on what happens with Houston, they potentially could get to 2. So the Lakers control their destiny to an extent. Houston essentially needs to win one more game to lock up the 2 seed. So if they win tonight, like one upside for the Lakers is if Houston wins tonight, maybe they rest their guys for that final regular season game in LA. And then if the Lakers can win that one, then they should win the Portland one. Portland will probably rest their guys. Then they just need to split the OKC Dallas game, and they're going 3-1, and then they lock in the 3 seed. So barring them, the danger zone is if they lose to OKC on Tuesday and then lose to Dallas. Now they've lost twice. Now there's no margin for error. And depending on where Houston's at, like they kind of have to win that Houston game, otherwise risk dropping. But aside from that, like that's the disaster scenario. I think they will at least split the OKC Dallas games. And if they do that, they're still in a really good spot to earn the 3 seed. But I'm with you that you cannot get complacent. But I think for today, we revel in the positives from today's game. Darian, thank you for the super chat. Yo, Jovan, what's your favorite / go-to cheat meal? My favorite / go-to cheat meal is, I would say it has been Shake Shack, but I'm shifting back to In-N-Out. My son loves In-N-Out, so whether we're on the road or like just wherever we are, there's typically an In-N-Out nearby. So we've had a lot of In-N-Out. So I will say my I try to keep it relatively healthy, even with the cheat meals. So like I'll have like a 4, yeah, a 4x4 is healthy, but I'll have a 4x4, no fries. So I kind of justify it like, all right, I'm not gonna have fries, and then I'll have a Diet Coke, and that'll be my cheat meal If it's Shake Shack, I'll have a double Shack burger. Then in that case, maybe fries because I'm not having the additional calories, although obviously less protein. And then if I want to get crazy, maybe a milkshake, but I try not to do that. And then I do love crumble cookies. We had it catered at our wedding, and I'm a big crumble cookie guy, but I've cut it out where I've probably had it 3 times in the past 7-8 months, and the prior 7-8 months I probably had it like 15 times. So try to eat healthy, especially when I'm traveling a lot. It's like I don't get to work out as much as I want. I don't get to sleep as much as I want. I don't get to drink as much water as I want. So I try to compensate by eating healthy. Today I completely violated that. I had, you guys are gonna see, I'm finally having a vlog, and I'm doing one off of today's game. I had for breakfast, and this is partly OKC's fault because this is what they were serving: sausage, fried chicken, waffles, cinnamon roll, ice cream, candy, Diet Coke, coffee, and then they serve pizza after. So I basically hit every unhealthy food you can eat today, and I will feel it probably tomorrow. So I'm only recording a new episode tomorrow. But thank you for the question. And Steven, thank you for the super chat. Jovan, love your content. Keep killing it. Curious about your time on Spectrum Sportsnet. How did it come about? And does Luka know you are half Serbian? So my time with Spectrum, it is a bit of like a rite of passage where they keep like 10 to 12 reporters on their rotating cast of contributors. So my first year, I was just getting my feet wet, was not on the show yet. But after that first year, had a coffee with one of the producers, and we talked through it. And I told him that I had done TV when I was covering the Clippers. That was back when they were with Fox Sports, and it was Fox Sports Prime Ticket. So the first time I ever did TV was a month into covering the team, and it was like we were on the road, and they just asked me in like, it was right before a road trip, and they asked, "Hey, do you want to, can you do TV pregame?" And I'd never done TV before, so got like my suit ready, all that stuff, and then pregame TV on the court is much respect to all the TV reporters who have to do it, because you are doing it. And oftentimes with how, like, you're doing it while the team has come out for their warmups, like 10, 15, 20 minutes before the game. So they're blaring all the stuff in the arena, and you could barely hear anything. So like my first time, my earpiece wasn't staying in, and then it just eventually fell out, and I just like kind of threw it behind my shoulder. And I was like, I have no idea what they're asking me. I'm just going to hope, like, we kind of talked about the topics beforehand. I hope I'm going to wing it, like be okay. So that was like my first TV experience. But then I did that for a couple years until I got kicked off for some of my reporting, which got me in some trouble with covering the Clippers, which I'm sure some of you are aware of. And then that's a whole other story. But I had some prior TV experience. I had some podcast experience with The Athletic. And so I just said, hey, like, I would love to do, never done a studio, would love to do a studio. If you guys have any openings coming up, like, would love to join the crew. So then that second year covering the Lakers, I got an audition, and I passed the audition, and then I got added to the regular contributor group. So now I do Spectrum probably every 3 to 5 weeks, depending on how busy things are. And sometimes we also do the podcast, which is fun to do the podcast with them. And that's also on camera. And I don't know if I think Luka might know. I have not told him directly, but I've talked to some of his people, and they're aware that I'm half Serbian. So I maybe that was brought to his attention. But I did greet him in Serbian when he first got to the Lakers. We've spoken a little bit in Serbian. We've had some side conversations. So I have not explicitly said I'm half Serbian to him, but we've talked a bit. So I think he has an idea. Hey, Chinani, thank you for the super chat. I wish Luka's Dallas return came earlier instead of near the playoffs. I just worry it'll take a lot of him out of him emotionally and mentally. I hear you. I think the one good thing about it is like there's still 2 games left, so it feels like the regular season finale. Maybe that there's some lingering stuff there, but after the Dallas game, the Lakers come back, and then they have a Houston game on Friday. So I think Luka's a professional. I think, of course, it's going to be an emotional reunion. It's going to be a big game for him, a big moment for him. He's going to get a bunch of love and nostalgia and memories with the Dallas fans and the crowd and all that stuff. And just being back in that building where he spent the first 6.5 years of his career. But I think it'll, in some ways, like sometimes you just got to like face the thing that you're kind of dealing with, right? And got to confront it and got to sometimes like having the conversation or doing the thing you've been putting off or that's been holding you back. Like you just get through it, you get over it. And I think that's what this is going to be for Luka, where he's already played Dallas once. He's had a couple months of acclimating and adjusting with the Lakers, but this has been looming over everything to like probably more so subconsciously, but to some extent, he's a human. This has been like, he's going back to Dallas. This has been a thing. He will now get past it. And I think it'd be one thing if they're playing them in the playoffs or something, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So I think it'll be a good thing for him. Like for the night, of course, who knows? He could have a great game. He could have a bad game. He could be somewhere in the middle. Lakers could win, could lose. Like obviously, there's a bunch of different ways that this could play out. But regardless, I think it'll be a positive for him to move past this. And it still will take some time. And he's been open about he's not over the whole situation yet and still processing it. But assuming that, I think, excuse me, I think it's going to be a good thing. So again, for the night, maybe not, but longer, I think just moving past that will be big for him and for the group. They see me trolling. They can't win. Thank you for the super chat. Imagine when Luka gets into shape. I mean, yeah, like I think it's gotten better. I know. I think with him, like it can stand out a bit. It's kind of like Jokic to an extent where. Look, am I saying he's in tip-top shape, like for his standards or for NBA player standards? Not necessarily. Is this the best shape he's been in? Is this the best shape he's been in this season? Probably not on either one of those fronts, right? Or not. But I think the thing with Luka is like it's kind of almost become a crutch now, where it's like when he doesn't look good, like people want it kind of both ways, where like when he doesn't look good, when he has a bad game, it becomes like, oh, he's out of shape and this is why and this and that. And then I'm not saying you're saying this. I know I feel like you're kind of saying this in jest or cracking a joke. And I hear you on it. I do see the discourse and it becomes when the Lakers lose or when he doesn't have a good game, it becomes the he's out of shape. And then when he cooks OKC, who's the best defense in the league and having a historic defensive season and has multiple guys who are going to be all defense candidates, that it's, okay, well, let's play off Luka or it's this or it's that. And it's just like, I think, again, he could be in better shape. I'm not saying he can't. I'm not, like, that should be, I think his primary focus this summer should be whenever that summer, it could be a late June summer, get acclimated in LA, like, find his permanent residence and just spend time with his family and then get in better shape, get healthier, and then go into next year ready to win his first MVP and potentially his first championship or maybe defend his first championship. So that I think is the offseason goal for Luka. But I think he's in much better shape and conditioning than he was at the time of the trade, like when he first made his Lakers debut. Like, and I think there have been some times where he's looked like in worse shape. I'm not saying that's not the case at all, but I think it has become a thing now where it's like anytime he doesn't play well, it just becomes a shape and conditioning thing. But it's like, this has kind of been how he is. And it's also, he still has had amazing games and more good games than not by far throughout this whole process. So It sometimes feels like people are cherry picking the conditioning just to kind of hammer him. Jeremiah, thank you for the super chat. Here we go with the top 5. Question of the day, LOL. 5 favorite Kobe shoes, model and colorway. So I'm gonna throw a curveball here because my favorite Kobe shoe of all time is the Kobe 1 for Adidas. So that is like probably one of my hottest takes of all time, because a lot of people think those shoes are ugly. They were called moon boots, space shoes, just not well regarded. I think maybe they've aged a little bit better, but I think there's something to when you're first getting into something, like there's those like core memories. And for me, I got into basketball during that 2000-2001 season, and Kobe was wearing the Kobe 1s. And my first pair of basketball shoes were Kobe 2s, actually, which those were the uglier ones. Those were more the moon boot ones. But Kobe 1s will always have. So I would say for that one, probably the Sunshine model. I actually, fun fact about me, I tore my Achilles wearing Kobe 1s. I was wearing the Laker colorway. It was like the white with the yellow and purple, and maybe I should be wearing shoes from 25 years ago that like it's the updated one, because Adidas brought them back. They're called the Crazy Ones now. But that, I'd say the yellow one's probably my favorite shoe of all time. It just brings back memories from childhood. Second, I'd probably have to look at, I'll say the Grinches are, but probably the red ones. I would say the Kobe 6 red Grinches. I'll throw in both. I have a soft spot for the Kobe 2s. I hooped in those, and I know that one's a weird one, but I hooped in the black and gold colorway. It's not a conventional one. That's the one that had the strap. That was kind of when straps were a thing. The Kobe official name is Kobe 2, or Nike Zoom Kobe 2 is the official name of that one. Then I would say I'm much more of like a 4, 5, 6 guy with Kobe, with the Nike shoes. So I'd say 6s. I would say the Bruce Lee 5s, the Red Grinch 6s, Kobe 2 black and gold, the Kobe 1s with Adidas, which I know is going to be a controversial take. And then fifth one is tough. I would probably go another Kobe 6. I'm looking at the colorways. I'll say the Sail ones. I like the Sail ones with the white and the black, but like it's kind of like a creamy white. I really like that colorway, so I'll go with that one. But good question. Always good questions. Your top 5 questions. Gorilla, thank you for the super chat. The Lakers always end their seasons on the road. It depends on the season. So, I mean, if I pull up the Lakers schedule quickly, last season, I believe they were on the road. They're at New Orleans. That led into the play. Yeah, that was the game to determine the play-in, and then they stayed. That was actually a wild day because I had my hotel booked that I had to extend it. And so 2 years ago, they ended it at home against Utah, 2023. So not always on the road. Literally Tai here. Shout out early night gang. I'm usually asleep. Well, that's because your name's Tai. But yeah, that's a bad joke. But thank you for not being asleep. Notorious CRG. How much buy-in to Luka getting effed by refs? I would not say that. I think Luka's gotten a pretty good whistle as a Laker. he's putting up more free throw. I believe it's right up there with like his highest free throws ever, if I'm not mistaken. This isn't updated, but looking at second highest of his third highest. So, but like for example, this year in Dallas, first 22 games, he was averaging 6.6 free throws a game, and he was actually playing more minutes. So it's close. He was playing 35.7. Now he's playing 35.3. So 0.4 difference, not a big difference. But in 0.4 fewer minutes, basically half a minute less, he's averaging 9 free throws per game. So I don't think Luka is getting. Now, if you want to say defensively, there are some times where, I mean, look, like any player, I think there are times he gets a rough whistle. I also think with him, similar to LeBron, although LeBron, it's a different scale. Like LeBron, I again, 1-on-3, LeBron gets clobbered, doesn't get the call. But I think with both guys, with guys like Giannis, though Giannis gets a good whistle, but like Shaq, like they have a certain level of physicality and strength that like it almost works against them, where I think because they can withstand more, they can withstand blows and like more physicality on drives or finishes or whatever, they don't get the call. Whereas if Shea is driving and absorbing that same level of physicality, he's probably going to go flying, right? Or at least be more affected by it. So I think that's one thing that is a factor. Today, Luka only had 4 free throws, but as I mentioned, in general, this was a lower free throw game, but his career high is 10.5 in the 2022-23 season. Then his second year, he averaged 9.2, but right now he's averaging 9 with the Lakers. It's going to go down a little bit after today's game, so maybe it'll be 8.8, but even 8.8 would still be the second highest of his career. I mean, third highest of his career. So I think he's getting a fair whistle. Like, of course, you can find exceptions, but like he's had several double-digit free throw games, and that to me is an indication like he's getting a fair whistle. Jordan Jones, yo, love you and Jason, my favorite guys to listen to. Thank you. Do you think the Lakers can still come out of the West if one of the big 3 gets banged up? I guess depends on your definition of banged up. If like one of those guys is out or one of those guys is compromised to like 60% or maybe even 70%, probably not. I think that they're going to need all 3 of those guys, especially when looking at the minutes. Those guys will all probably be, I'd be surprised if any one of those 3, barring an injury or foul trouble, plays fewer than 38 minutes in like a typical playoff game. That's not a blowout. So I think they're going to need a certain level, especially because we have seen there has been a make or miss nature to the Lakers supporting cast, where again, when they're making shots, it looks great and they're basically unbeatable. When they're not, there's a little bit more of a burden on Luka and LeBron and Austin to shot create, to get to the rim, to get to the free throw line, to make pull up and step back threes and stuff. So I would even argue that like I feel like all 3 of them are kind of banged up right now to varying degrees. I think maybe they could withstand one of them getting a little bit more banged up. I also think there's like different. There's context here, right? Because I think the one I'd be most afraid of getting banged up would probably be Luka, because already I think because of some of the conditioning stuff and him being out for a while, like I don't think he's physically gotten back to being like where he was pre-injury or where he was last season, and him being even more banged up would be, I just don't know if you'd see the best version of him. And I think they probably need the best version of him to win a championship or actualize their potential. With Austin, I feel like he's always banged up and he just kind of plays through it. So but he's been so great that like, you know, if he doesn't have the same burst or downhill ability, that's tough. And then with LeBron, I think he's clearly banged up to some extent, and we've seen how much that's impacted, especially the defense. So the more I kind of talk through it, I don't think they could win the West if one of the three gets banged up. But I don't think that's like a controversial opinion, just because I think you could probably apply that to like, if Steph Curry gets banged up, or do the Warriors have a chance to win the West? If Shea gets banged up, right? Like, and I think the Lakers, those teams don't have a number two or second person on the level of a Luka or LeBron, however you want to categorize them. But yeah, I mean, I think they need those three guys, and then really I think they need DFS and Rui. I think those are like the five most important players. And then technically Jackson is up there too, just because they just like need a 7-footer. they need a setter for 15 minutes a night. But yeah, I mean, I would say especially though those five are I think that the five most important players. Fahim, thank you for the super chat. How often do you get PR access to LA assistant coaches or to the wider LAL staff for on the record insight interviews? See the Backstage Lakers special on Spectrum where they introduce the analytics department. Not often. The policy is you're supposed to be able to get an assistant if it's for a story, or like they have to at least ask them, and then it's up to the assistant to. There's been different rules on this. Like when I first started covering the NBA, it was very much a coaching staff policy thing where it was up to the head coach. And like when I was covering Doc Rivers, he didn't allow his assistant coaches to speak on the record. And so it's kind of a coach by coach basis type thing. I think Frank Vogel was much chiller about that. So again, it's just depends on the coach and how they are. I will say with JJ, one of the interesting things with their coaching staff, because there's ways around it, right? Like you could obviously talk, maybe not on the record, but you could talk to people off the record. You could talk to people at games. But one thing with JJ that's been interesting to watch has been like how intentional he is with everyone's time. And a lot of times with previous coaching staffs that I've covered, like there's always a couple people on the court, right? And so there'll be a player development person, there'll be an assistant coach, and everyone has their assignments of who they're assigned to in terms of players and their warm-ups and their routine and all that stuff. But there would be downtime, and there would be coaches sitting on the baseline, sitting on the sideline, and they'd be accessible, and you could pick their brain on different stuff and get to know a little bit more about them, get to know a little bit more about the team, the scheme, different stuff. And that's where I've gotten some of my best stuff throughout the years. This year with JJ, it's been a lot less of that idle time. It feels very intentional and purposeful, where guys are always doing something. Like you rarely see someone, maybe very early on before guys are warming up or like before a certain time, you might see a little bit of that. But for the most part, it's like the bench is more full with more players there. They're going over film with different assistant coaches or player development people. Then the people on the court are always doing something. And like, I think Nate McMillan and Scott Brooks sometimes will be available. And sometimes they're talking, like they know everybody. So that they're always kind of having some pregame conversation with someone who it looks like they've known for like 20 plus years. But on the record, it's not been as much. Like I haven't really needed them, but I do think maybe a Greg St. Jean story would be interesting, just because he has such good relationships with LeBron and Luka. He works out both of them. And I think that's interesting. He's also LA's offensive coordinator. Analytics department, I know most of the analytics department, like just from like meeting them at games, but not really as much for interviews. But just by knowing people, you can get some insights and stuff and pick people's brains on stuff. So I definitely do a good portion of that. Rola Pacastola, thank you for, this is a different Rola. This is not Rola Plus. This is Rola Pacastola. The Lakers are getting the chip. Lakers getting the chip would be poetic. It would be. I mean, even if it's not, it would be good for the Lakers, right? So you get LeBron get his 5th ring. You get Luka getting his 1st ring. He's officially, we know with the Lakers, it's championship or bust every year. Luka gets a ring at his first. LeBron gets a second ring as a Laker. Luka gets his first ring in his first half season as a Laker. He immediately becomes a Lakers legend. And obviously, like, not at the top of that list, but like, he's now on the list. He's in that inner circle of best player or second best player on a title team, which is that's rare air. It's the best of the best if you look at Lakers history. Yeah, it would be poetic. And look, I'll say I'd be concerned for the mental health of Dallas residents. I do not think they would take that well, but I think Lakers fans would be parading down Figueroa. Erickson, thank you for the super chat. Did we ever get details of Goody's contract? Also, for those of us who aren't too familiar, what's a rundown on Kleber's game? Goody's contract is a 1+1, so he's signed through the rest of the season. It's a prorated amount for the final few games that he's playing, and then next season, Lakers have a team option on. It's a minimum contract, so I would assume that they pick that up and guarantee that, but they have the optionality there depending on how the rest of the season goes and just what their cap situation is looking like, what the roster is looking like. But I think Jordan Goodwin on a vet minimum contract is a fair deal, and he looks like a back end rotation guy, so I don't see any reason why the Lakers shouldn't keep him. In terms of Maxi Kleber, I will say his game prior to the injury, he had slipped a bit this season, so I'm going to go more based off of like who he has been rather than who he had been this season. But the general like outline of his game is offensively, he is a stretch big. He has had several seasons shooting above league average from three in the playoffs. 3 of his 4 postseasons, he shot 40+% on threes, which is obviously a really good mark. He's been a part of Dallas getting to the conference finals, Dallas getting to the finals, and he's always not as involved in the 2024 run, but was a big part of the 2022 run. But he's got that big game playoff experience. Luka loves him. So offensively, he's primarily going to be a guy who, pick and pop, catch and shoot, spot up, maybe some dribble handoff actions, but for the most part is going to be a perimeter-based big man, not really much of a roller or like an interior threat. Decent to solid rebounder. I think it probably depends where you play him. If you're playing him at the 5 versus at the 4, I think at the 4, it's obviously a better rebounder because he's about like 6'10", 230, 235-ish. So not like too slender, undersized, but also not like the biggest or bulkiest guy. And then defensively, I think this is where the 2 big parts of his game are the 3-point shooting and then the defensive versatility. Against the Lakers, he's guarded LeBron, he's guarded AD. So he is one of those guys who I think as he's aged into his early 30s, you want to be a little bit more careful with maybe putting him on like wings, but I think he can guard 4s and 5s. There are probably guys who are too athletic for him, and then also probably guys who like you don't want to put him on like Jokic. But I think like the average, like if he was playing the Lakers, I think you could probably put him on like Jackson and be okay. Maybe Rui and be okay. But I think he could, or Dorian or whatever. So like I think he can guard like that caliber of offensive player. I don't know if you want to put him on like a Şengün or a Jokic or Jaren Jackson, right? So like there's I think at this point he's clearly more of like a back end rotation guy and a guy you want to use in 1 to 2 shifts a game, at least in like a playoff context. Maybe he gets back to being at a higher level, but at least based on like some of the regression we saw this year, that's how I would use him. That said, like he's only got a few games left. He's missed 10 weeks. I would want to temper expectations with him, but over the offseason, he could be a trade chip, and he could also be someone that they're just adding a rotation big to their lineup for next year. So I think he has utility in either direction, but that's the basic rundown of his game. I think he's a winning player. He's a smart player. He doesn't like take bad shots. Really, he doesn't like force things. He broke the Lakers' heart a few years ago with that game-winning three at Crypto. So I think he's a winning player. All right, going to go about 5 more minutes here. I see Hen L asks, who is the harder matchup, OKC or the Warriors? I still lean OKC. I know Lakers just lost to one of these teams, and Lakers just beat one of these teams by 27. So I understand the recency bias, but I try to refrain from recency bias. I still think on the whole, OKC, they're going to win probably 67 games. And I think they're going to have home court. Whereas the Warriors, it's looking like the Lakers would have home court over them in a potential series, either in the 4-5 or maybe the conference finals, but like, it looks like the Lakers are going to be ahead of the Warriors tentatively. So assuming they do, the Lakers have been the second best home team in the West. I would give them an advantage in any series they have a home court, advantage. So I think that factor alone also shifts it a little bit of like, you got to win, you got to try and split one of the two in OKC versus like having the first two at home in LA and potentially going up 2-0. So I still lean OKC, but look, we're going to get another data point on Tuesday. And if the Lakers put belt to ass on Tuesday, that I was considering if I wanted to say that, but I said it. I let it fly. We're an hour 45 in. They put belt to ass on Tuesday, then I will change my tune and reevaluate that. Jeremy Jazwinski, how's your hotel room this evening, Jovan? A nice clean room? Or I got in last night. It's AC hotel. Probably shouldn't have said that, but just don't come find me. But yeah, I like this chain of hotels, depending on what the options are, and it's like kind of a modern minimalist. Choco Thunder asks if Alex Len will be on the Lakers roster. I'm probably going to get aggregated on this, so I'm not going to answer, to be honest. But I'm not. I'm gonna refrain. I'm sorry. I've got aggravated too much on some of these roster stuff. Some of this roster stuff. Art of War says, like it when you're edgy. Yeah. I'm trying to I'm trying to let out the inner the edginess. You know, I've kept it polished, and I like being polished, but Stephen Lee, Jovan, do you think Vando's playable in the playoffs? Looks like he struggles on offenses and dump offs and in the paint when he tries to drive, and the defense can bait him into coughing it up. I think Vando is playable in the playoffs. I think you have to be really careful and intentional with the lineups you use him in. I think, to your point, and those who've been listening going back to last season, I have long said that I actually think the bigger issue with Vando is his finishing and not his shooting, because you can still, especially if you have the proper shooting and spacing with the rest of the lineup, you can get away with a guy who's not a good shooter and who defenses don't guard. You can shift things to run more 4 out, 1 in. You could shift him along the baseline. You could shift him around the elbows, make him more of a DHO guy. Like, there's different ways to kind of counter that. But it gets tricky when there's 2 guys who are not shooters. And that's where playing him with Jackson, I don't like. I like that it's kind of been staggered more. And then even Goodwin, I understand, like, you can kind of supercharge the defense a little bit, but I'd probably like to keep those 2 away. And then also, oddly, Vando and Luka have not been a good fit, in part because Luka needs more of a pick and roll partner and either more of a roller or more of a popper. Vando can't pop, and the rolling, it's very mixed results. Like, he can do the short roll playmaking, and I think I think he's a solid passer, especially based on some of his offensive limitations. The finishing is the concern, and that's what you're getting at. And I think the catching in traffic, the catching and finishing in traffic, even some of the putback stuff, like, I think there are some limitations there that do ultimately limit him, because there are guys who maybe don't have quite the same level of shooting issues, but maybe they have like close to that, but then they'll back cut you and get a dunk, or they'll back cut you and like get an and one. And like, Vando doesn't quite have that skill set. It more has to be like, he got a back cut for a dunk against the Warriors, but like that's rare. So I think my optimal Vando lineup, I guess if we're building this out, would be LeBron, Austin, Gabe, and then DFS or Rui as the fifth guy. So I think you want to keep him staggered from Luka and Jackson, and you want to keep Luka and Jackson together. Probably put Goodwin in those lineups too, just because I personally don't love the Goodwin Vando. I think there's too much playing off of those guys, even compared to like Goodwin and Hayes. I like Goodwin and Hayes more than Goodwin and Vando personally. But then you've got LeBron and AR. They can run their 2-man game. Either one of those guys can handle the ball. And then you got the floor spacing with Gabe and DFS, or Gabe and Rui. And then you got Vando on the interior, either in the dunker spot, around the elbows. You can run some horns. You can run some DHOs with him, or some off-ball screening actions or whatever. But you got the spacing. You got, especially if it's Rui, you got like 3 high-level scorer, shot creator types in LeBron, Austin, Rui, that can attack a defense if they are going to try to load up. And again, so I think it's playable, but just to take what JJ said at face value, it sounds like JJ feels like there's a ceiling there on Vando's role because of the offensive limitations and because of the way the Lakers offense functions. So just taking JJ's words at face value and his actions at face value of limiting Vando's minutes recently, he's been much closer to like 10 to 15 minutes than he has been to like 18 to 22 minutes. Seems like he's more so going to be in that 10 to 15 minute range. And that's what I would assume going into the playoffs is like, maybe it ends up being around 15 or so, but it seems like he's not going to get much higher than that. So I would kind of pencil him in for that role. My mom says, love you, Jovan. Gotta go. White Lotus finale. Thanks all. Love you too. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be watching it yet. Might be watching it with my wife over FaceTime, but I got a lot of work to do tonight. So it did hit a little bit past 5 minutes. I'm going to wrap here. I appreciate you all for hanging out for almost a couple hours. But I do have 2 stories I got to work on tonight. So including a Luka story I'm working on for the return to Dallas. So I hope you all will enjoy that one and check that one out on The Athletic. I'll also be sure to talk about that on here. But that'll do it. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back tomorrow with a new episode of Buha's Block. I will be podcasting with Sean Davis, and we are going to be ranking the Lakers' potential first-round playoff opponents 1 through 5. We're going to go through one reason for optimism with each matchup and one reason for concern. So we're going to go back and forth. He'll give me his number 1. I'll give him mine. I feel like our number 1's probably going to be the same. I think everyone knows it's going to be Memphis. Spoiler. After Memphis, then we're going to have more of a dialogue and a conversation about the rest of how we rank the West and just the potential outcomes for the Lakers, and then do a little bit of a preview for each matchup. So doing a little bit more playoff content recently. This one's going to be a little bit more of a deeper dive. I've had some surface level stuff more recently, and then we'll have, whenever we know the Lakers playoff situation, I will have a deep dive with Cranjis and then maybe one other person, and that will be something to look forward to. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow, probably dropping sometime in the afternoon. But otherwise, I will talk to you all very soon.